Hi everybody, my name is Louis-Philippe Massé from HumanWare, and it's a great pleasure to have you all with us today for this tactile graphic webinar. Our presenter today is Lucia Asti, who literally has decades of experience in tactile graphics. She had 18 years experience in education, and she's today very active, making webinars, of course, and act as a consultant for various organizations. So we'll be using GoToWebinar and for those who are visually impaired, we're very sorry. We know that it's not perfectly accessible. Sorry about that. We also will be taking some questions from time to time. So please use the question box in the GoToWebinar application that you have. And I'll be reading the question to Lucia for you. So I'm now giving the microphone to Lucia. So we'll talk about, amongst other things, the feature of Firebirds software, the latest version, which is version 29. So without further ado, please welcome Lucia.
Thank you. I'm glad to see all of you here. That's bunches of you. That's really great. As Louis-Philippe said, if you have questions about what I'm talking about at that moment, please don't hesitate to put them in the question box, and he will keep me on track about answering them then if it's related to exactly what I'm talking about. Otherwise, we'll save a little time at the end for any questions that you might have, whether you have Firebird and an embosser that can use it, or whether you're planning on getting one. So we'll just get started on this. What we're going to be talking about today is techniques for producing the graphics that your students are going to love, because they're going to be so much better than a lot of other things that we can create for them. We're going to talk about how to import and convert an image, and I think that probably gets people stumped the most quickly when they get started. We will be talking about steps to open and emboss graphics that are in other formats, namely the ones for smarter balanced assessments that are PRN files, and also about producing the embossed graphics to meet standards, the VANA standards, guidelines and standards for tactile graphics. So we'll be talking about those different subjects and anything else that you have a question about that we need to go over. So you probably are thinking, so why do I need to have a graphics embosser as opposed to just a regular embosser? And probably you are going to need to produce some graphics that should be in the student's text, but they aren't always. It used to be okay, used to be acceptable for transcribers to say all pictures are omitted, all graphics are omitted. That's not, doesn't meet standards now, and it's not okay now, but you will still find some books that don't have any graphics. When I was director of our state instructional materials center, I bought a social studies, a history textbook that had 0 maps in it. And when I contacted the agency who produced it, they said, oh, we don't do graphics. But we had all the words in there, but we didn't have any maps. But that's a little hard to take history without any maps. So you might run into that. I would hope not at this point in time. The other thing is that the teachers are constantly making tests and handouts and that kind of stuff, and you need to be able to do a quick turnaround for the graphics for that. Also, sort of as a self-preservation thing, if you can create templates for the graphics that you know that you're going to need over and over again, like grids for graphs, for instance, or outline maps, and that you can add details to later, that's a real big time saver for you as you go along. So how can you use Firebird? Well, currently the embossers that work are the Phoenix Gold. These are enabling embossers, by the way, that HumanWare sells. The Phoenix Gold, which is high-resolution graphics embosser. It also is a regular standard Braille embosser. Also, the brand new Romeos and the brand new Juliets, Romeo 60 and the Juliet 120. And you'll see the picture of the Romeo and Juliet look very, very much alike. Romeo is single side and the Juliet is double side, not for graphics, obviously. They're just a whole new generation of embossers from the old Romeo, the old Juliet that that you might have had. If you also have an older enabling embosser, the Phoenix Silver, which was the first one, or the Cyclone, or the Trident, they also, if you have one of those, the current version of Firebird will also still work on those. Those are none of those are on the market now, but you might have one. So let's look at what Firebird actually looks like. The thing that's unique about it is that you've got two sides to the screen. You have the left side, which is for the source image, and I'm trying to be consistent in words. Image meaning the print that you're working from, the print image. And then on the right side, what you have is the page image, which shouldn't be named image, it should be named graphic. This is where your tactile graphic, what it's going to look like as a tactile graphic, is going to be over on the right side of the page. So the menus are here for across the top, and we'll go through each one of the little menu items as we go through this whole process. I'm sorry, I just ended up losing my place on in the file here. The first thing you want to do is you want to set at the bottom left-hand corner, you want to use the settings boxes and control what size paper you're going to use, what your DPI setting is, and which piece of equipment you're using at this point. There's a drop-down list. This is not a live picture, by the way. It's just a screenshot. There's a drop-down list that lists the different pieces of equipment you could be using, and also the different DPIs. And let me talk about DPI a minute. Dots per inch is what that stands for, and it has to do with how close the dots can possibly be and how many you can fit into 1 inch. So when you get to 25, that's a bunch of dots, and so you can get a pretty fine resolution, as opposed to at 12, for instance, which if you're using QuickTac and your standard embosser, you're somewhere around 12 and a half dots per inch. It's much less, it's a much rougher picture that you're going to, image that you're going to end up with. So you would set all those things in the very beginning so that you would know that so the graphic would turn out to be the size that you want to do. Then you're going to need to be able to import a graphic of some sort. You either can import a print image that is brand new, or a print image that you imported before and used the filters on to sort of change how it was in print so that it looked good in Braille. Or you, if you have an image in your file, this would be the initial import, that's a JPEG or a TIFF, a GIF, PNG, or a BMP. Those are all sort of picture file formats. Those will import straight in. Some SVGs will import, but not all of them. You can try it and see what happens. The PDFs probably are not going to import straight across. You're probably going to need to do a conversion, and there are tons of free PDF converters. You can convert PDFs to Excel files, to Word files, to other kind of image files. You can PDFs to JPEGs or whatever. So just search for PDF converters, and you'll just find a whole long list of programs that will do that for you that are free. And as I mentioned, the PRNs, which is the format that was developed basically for the View Plus family of embossers, Tiger embossers, and that's also what the smarter balanced assessments are set in that particular format. And you can import those into Firebird and emboss them on a non-Tiger embosser. Okay, so to import the image, the first thing you do on the file menu is, your file menu right up here, is you say open, and then you choose image file, and then you select a file that you have on your computer somewhere. I happen to have had this file of the map of Florida, an outline map of Florida. If you look under the title, it says Florida. It would show you the URL for where there's tons of state maps, 50statemaps.com. And so I happen to have had this one on my computer. I imported that one, and so what you see on the right screen, I just realized my screenshot's not quite all the way. What you see on the right screen is what it's going to look like as the Braille image. And so now you want to look at, am I going to need to change that at all? Right away, we know that you don't want to have that print label on there, so you're going to change that. But if there could be that you might need to darken some lines or lighten up some lines, take out some blurry places. At any rate, you see what the print looks like on the left, and you see what the braille looks like on the right. Some of the features that are on the main menu are an undo and redo. Most of the controls that you will find in Microsoft products, so Microsoft Office, you can also use in they also work in Firebird. So for undo, it's Control Z. For copy, it's Control C. Paste, Control V, the same kind of commands that you would use otherwise. You can also set up custom page sizes so that you can either use narrow paper or wide paper, but you can also, if you have something unusual, an unusual size paper, you can set that up too in the main menu. Then is a whole long list of image tools, and the help file has some really good explanations about what they do. Playing with them is the part of the learning curve. It's just playing with it and seeing what happens. And the neat thing about the newest version is that it gives you a thumbnail of how it's going to look when you apply it. And if we have time, I'll go back and do some live stuff and show you how that works. You get to try out the image filters and see what happens to the graphic, the page image on the right, and see how that changes. And that's really helpful to know what's going to happen. Okay, so here's a screenshot that shows the thumbnail. I imported a file from a kid's coloring book of a butterfly, and when I imported it, it wasn't very clear on the right side, on the page image side, and so I used an image tool and chose a Gaussian blur. Well, now, that's not been part of my vocabulary. I didn't know what a Gaussian blur was, but if you go down and click each one, it'll show you what it's going to look like when that happens. When I did that, the image on the left is a little blurry, but if you look on the right side, what it's going to look like in Braille was a lot clearer and stronger than before I applied that particular filter to it. So once you've imported your image, now we've moved to the right half of the screen. At the very top of, let me back up. At the very top on the right half, which says page image, there's a little button that says edit that's right by the rulers, and that's what you'll need to click to start working on this image as it's a Braille image. The drawing tools are in this column right here on the left, and if you hover over the picture, the image, it will tell you which tool it is and what it's going to do. There are two erasure tools. One is for a very quick erasure of a small area. Then the second one, the bottom one, is it allows you to just erase a whole ton of things. So you would use that, for instance, to erase the print where it says Florida and the on the Florida map where it says Florida and then the URL for where the map came from. You would use it to erase all that print so that you could put a Braille label there. The other thing is that when you make the Braille labels, the little T that's in the bottom of that column is how you do that. But before you get ready to make a Braille label, you want to go up to the control panel, up to controls up in your menu panel, and the drop-down list will say whether or not you want to do text entry or 6-key entry, meaning using your keyboard like a Braille writer. And so you can either Braille it in, Braille the label in, or you can type it in and then it translates. It does not translate from one grade to another. So if you want contracted Braille for your label and you're going to type it in, you'll need to type in ASCII. If you don't have an ASCII keyboard, there are a lot of them around, and I would get a picture of an ASCII keyboard that will tell you when you type this is what you'll get in Braille. Okay, and in the top right-hand corner, there is a grid that you can turn on or turn off. It is not a grid that will make you a grid for graph. I wish it were. But it's basically a whole bunch of lines that will tell you, then you can set it for however thick you want it to be, how big you want the squares to be. They'll allow you to line things up straight. So if you do need to make sure that a label is lined up straight, if it's far enough away so it's not going to blend in with the Braille of the actual image itself. So that the grid is real helpful. You can turn it on or turn it off. And the pen widths, the pen styles, are a bunch of different pen widths that will let you make a line fat or a line skinny, or different kinds of lines which you'll need in order to show something when you have something that has a bunch of different lines in it. Now, if you're going to open a PRN, for Smarter Balance test, on the menu, on the file menu, there's a command that says import a PRN. And so when you do that, it goes straight over to the Braille edit side, to the right side, because it's already a Braille graphic. When you're importing a print image, it's going to start out on the left, and then you'll also see what it looks like, what it's going to look like in Braille. But when you import a Braille image, it's going to just show up just on the right, and that's when you can, from there, work on it if you need to. A unique thing about the embossers, the Phoenix especially, is that there are two embossing heads, and one is for standard regular Library of Congress Braille, single-sided with the Phoenix. That will just give you regular ordinary Braille, so if you wanted to just Braille text pages, you can do that. Embossed text pages, you can do that, like from a Duxbury file or any other kind of Braille translation file. The second head actually does the graphics. So there are two different ones, and so one of the things you want to look at very carefully when you import an image that is actually already a Braille graphic, like a PRN file, is what do the Braille labels look like? I have terrible luck importing something that already has Braille labels on it. For instance, some people will use Microsoft Word and type out their word and then switch it over to a Braille font. When you import that, very often the dots are not the right distance apart, so the Braille is sort of screwy looking. So you want to always double check that if you're importing something that already has a Braille label in the image, and see whether or not you might need to redo those. You can also run multiple files at one time, as opposed to doing one single side. Initially, when the program was developed, there was just one. You could only do one graph at one page at a time. Now you can do multiple files, and as I mentioned before, custom page sizes. You can also adjust the dot intensity, which sometimes you need to do. Sometimes, if you need to have something perforated, you put it on the highest intensity you can have, and it does a nice job of making it so you can tear it off easily, and that's not what you want to do. So Braille paper computer paper seems to be real inconsistent in how thick it is. Even though they say it's 80 pound, it seems to be wimpier sometimes than others, not as tightly woven as others, and so different papers are going to react differently. So you might want to adjust your dot intensity based on that particular thing. So what is it that Firebird does not do well? Well, with all the other graphics embossers, it's the same thing. Because you don't have a lot of variation in height, the point symbols. So if you're like marking where all the cities would be, or putting dots on a line graph, the coordinates on a line graph, you will find out that those are not very clear. They're not really nice solid circles or really nice solid squares or whatever point symbol that you're using. So very often you need to embellish that. An easy way to do that for a point symbol is to take a hole punch out a piece of cardboard, and the result of that hole is, that must have a name, I don't know what it is. The result of the hole is a nice little round dot that you can use to just stick it right where the point symbol needs to be on your graphic, and you're done. It's all done. The other thing that Firebird, like the other embossers for high-resolution graphics, it does not deal well with complex images. When we have complex images, for instance, a map, for instance, in print, there are lots of different line widths, there are different colors, there are lots of other information that tells you this piece is not exactly the same piece. These are two separate things. In Braille, it all sort of merges together. One of the things we know from research is that if two entities are closer together than 1/8 of an inch, they will appear to be like two lines, for instance. They will look like one fat line as opposed to two individual lines, because neurologically we don't perceive it as being two separate things. So with complex images, lots of times things are much too close together. And so you're going to need to go back and edit and redesign anything that's a complex image before you run it through Firebird or any of the other high-resolution embossers either. Also, I mentioned about producing Braille labels that from an imported image, that doesn't work too well. When I do that, very often what I do is just use my little eraser thing, erase the braille label that's there, and make a new braille label and put it in so that it's clean and goes straight from there. So one of the things that we said that we were going to talk about is how does this relate to the BANA guidelines and standards? Well, during the development of Firebird, the programmers wanted to make sure that they were creating a product that was going to work to meet the best standards and the best readability for tactile readers. So they created a variety of fills, and we'll go back and look at what those look like in a minute, so that they were all going to each individually be distinguishable. They created the drawing tools so that you would be able to create the kinds of things that most often you're going to need to use. Variations in lines, variations in textures, areas, that kind of thing. They did 2 different erasure tools because you need better erasure tools. And they created a variety of line widths, which if you're doing anything that has more than 1 line in it, they need to be different widths so you can tell that they're different lines. They also included the grid that I mentioned before that's not embossed, so to help support the proper spacing. They considered the guidelines and standards as they developed the tools, and then provided for the either text or braille entry, depending on what people are most comfortable doing with. As a resource, the guidelines and standards for tactile graphics, that's essentially really the Braille code in North America for tactile graphics. For a long time we didn't have, well, before 2010, we never actually had an official Braille code for that. And there are a number of guidelines out there that a number of different people have produced, which are all considered and incorporated when the guidelines and standards were written. But the guidelines and standards is a document that can really help you design a graphic that's going to be readable by your students. A lot of kids think they can't read graphics because they've seen a lot of bad ones and they've not been consistent and they don't really quite know where to start with them. Hopefully, over their lives in school, we will have enough consistent graphics that kids will be able to read them and be able to use them well as they go through school and as their materials increase in complications. So let me pull up, are there any questions so far? I guess will be my next thing.
Yes, we have a question. Can we show how to resize the images? And also, is it able to save an image once edited so we can come back later and print again?
Oh, okay. Let me pull up a live version of Firebird, and hopefully this will work. Are you seeing rabbits?
Yes, we see.
Yeah, oh good, okay. All right, good. There's a whole other issue around these rabbits, which I can talk about later. In my files, I had a whole file full of different shapes of rabbits. And so I said file, open, and I wanted to open an image file. And it asked me where, and this is where I've been last. This is my little file full of rabbits. I chose one, and it plopped it right in there. So this is what came in on the image side. And if you look over on the right, that's what it's going to look like when it's in Braille. So I look at that and think, well, does that work okay? I've chosen a large piece of paper, and it's really not a terribly, this will fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but I've said already that I have white paper in there. That's okay. And I've said that I want high definition, and I have a Phoenix Gold, not one of the other ones that are below. And interesting that to this menu has not yet been added the brand new Romeo and Juliets, which haven't been out that long, and that should be on there and will be, I'm sure, added to this drop-down menu. But if you choose high definition, that will give you what you need. The 25 is the maximum for the Phoenix embosser. And that's pretty high definition. I usually, with mine, have to go down to 20 DPI in order to make it not punch holes in the paper. But if you choose high definition, that probably is going to give you what you will need for the new Romeo and new Juliet. I would go back to, for my particular embosser, and they all seem to have their own personalities, I would go to 20 DPI for my Phoenix Gold. So this is how the image worked. Now, if I needed, there's your undo and redo on your edit uh, part of the menu, and then your page size. This is here, and you can add a custom or edit one that's there. Here, these are your image tools. And I showed you a screenshot of the Gaussian blur on the butterfly from there. So if I go down and I say, okay, here's my initial image. I'm not sure. Maybe I want this to be a stronger contrast. So I go ahead and increase contrast, and it shows me what happens if I click that. What is that going to look like? What is the print image going to look like? If I needed to do a Gaussian blur, you look at it, the image, what it's going to look like when you click that, and you think, oh, that's not going to work because it's too blurry, but you'd be surprised, well, let me just do it. It made your print image blurrier, but it's pretty much the same on your on the Braille image. Sometimes making the print image blurrier makes the lines thicker on the in the Braille image and makes it clearer, and that it's not logical, doesn't make any sense, but you can just try it and see. If you don't like how that is, you can say Control Z, you can back up and undo what you just did. For instance, if I decide I need to brighten it and did that, not too much difference, except if you'll notice there's some missing pieces over here on the right, and so I might want to undo that one and see those missing pieces come back. I don't know if you noticed it, that was right there. So anyway, you can adjust what your Braille image is going to look like. You don't care so much what your print image looks like when you're done, but you want your Braille image to look the way it is. So if you do a save as, it's going to save the print image because that's the side that you're on. And if you'll notice, it says EEG at the bottom. So if I save this as my rabbit one, oh, there already is a rabbit one. See your, this is what my print image was to start with. That's why it's telling me that. All right, rabbit one. Save that. So now I have saved that print image. If I want to save the Braille image, I need to be over on the Braille side to do that. So I'm going to click this edit button right over here. And this screen popped up in the wrong place. Okay, are you seeing the, I hope that you're seeing the Braille edit display screen. You can change how big it is, how big your working surface is, just by clicking on the plus. If you're using something with lots of details, very often you might need to get it bigger in order to get in there and see what you need, which dots you need to take out or put more in or whatever. That allows you lots of flexibility in doing that. But if I want to save this image, and I go in and say save, it's saving the Braille image now, and that's an EET. That's the image that that you would have if you went back to emboss it. So when you go back again to pull up your Braille image, you can still go back in and change anything. Say you decide, oh, I need to go back and put on a label, or I need to go back and fix a spelling that I made wrong on the other label. So that will allow you to do that. So that's how you save. Someone asked me about adjusting the size. If you import something that's a small image, you can't really adjust the size within this program. That ends up being something you need to do in a different one. So from wherever it is you get that image from, you can copy it and paste it in Word and adjust the size, and then save it, and then import it again. Save it as a picture image and import it again. You can do the same thing in a PowerPoint, which is interesting. You can copy it and paste it right into a PowerPoint slide. You can, from the little handles that are on the edges, you can change the size and then import it that way. You can't really change the size that it's going to be once you've imported it into Firebird a whole lot. You can change what you're seeing on the screen, but not how it's going to print out from there. So did that answer this questions about changing size?
There's also a question related to this. Is it possible to fill parts of the image, such for example, the head of the rabbit? Yeah?
I didn't understand what you said.
Is it possible to fill some image of some part of the image, for example, to fill the the head or the body of the
Oh,
rabbit.
fill it once it's done. That piece is not as well developed as I'd like to see it. This is not a full drawing program. If it were, you'd be paying hundreds of dollars for it. But if I say I want, for instance, this particular fill, and if I put it here, nothing happens when I bring it in and put it in here. If, however, I drew a circle, the circle would show up filled, but not in the existing piece that's in there. And that would be really cool if you could do that. Also at this point, in some drawing programs, you can trace around the outside edges and then say, I want to fill these edges that I just traced. Those are usually a lot more sophisticated drawing programs that are not about embossing, but about drawing, that you can do that. You cannot do that in this one. If you created this image, and we can certainly create a new image, then you can fill it along the way, but you can't fill it at this point in time like that. Does that answer the question that was asked?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We have a few other questions, but let's continue, and we'll ask a lot of questions at the end.
Okay. All right. I see something about a pie chart on here. How do you fill any part of an image, such as a pie chart, using the fill tool? Okay. If you are creating that pie chart from scratch, you're probably going to have to create little triangles and fill each one of those and connect them together, like using this tool right here, the polygon tool. However, if you go to the guidelines and standards, what you'll see is that for pie charts, you don't fill that. All of the labels go on the outside of each pie piece with a, if you need to, with a lead line into it, because the point for a pie, the whole point about a pie graph is that you are able to quickly compare the sizes of each set of information, each set of data. And if you got stuff in there, if you got colors or textures or words or labels inside it, then it's too hard. You can't compare. You can't do a very good job of comparing it tactily. So check your guidelines and standards about that. But this is not a program that will allow you to have a drawing and change that drawing to that extent, change and either have it filled or not filled. If it were filled when you brought it in, you could go in and erase that fill, and I have done that more than once from there. So, okay. I will be glad to use the live view and do any other things that you have questions about. Oh, well, no, that's interesting. We're going to close the rabbits. Well, maybe we're not. I need to figure out why this is happening. So, okay. I'm not sure why this is happening. We thought we were all set up from here. Okay, so let me go back to the resources for producing the graphics. Oh, I'm still not able to get rid of those rabbits. I really apologize for that. The resources for producing producing graphics are the guidelines and standards, and just to finish that off, they are on the BANA website, brailleauthority.org/TG for tactile graphics, and so you can download the actual rules and all the examples from there for free from the website. You can either download them to a file that you keep on your computer, and so they're searchable. That's a great way to do that. Or you can actually download one of the versions and print it out. The HTML version is not printable because it's not divided into pages, but there is a PDF version that you can print out if you want a print copy. It's lots and lots of pages, but you can do that. In addition to that, there is a set of actual examples and a number of different production methods that you can buy from American Printing House for the Blind, and it is available on federal quota money for those of you who are in programs where there is quota money. So I would encourage you to get those and use those as your guidelines as you're doing images for, as you're doing graphics for your students. Some of the other resources that are helpful. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad I figured that out. Thank you. The American Foundation for the Blind has, a part of their e-learning webinar series, there is one on touching on tactile graphics, and it's on the basic beginning skills about that. They had planned a series of webinars about tactile graphics, and I'm not sure funding does crazy stuff, so I'm not sure where that's going, but at least there's one that's there. National Rail Association has conferences that have lots of technical workshops in them, and some about tactile graphics, some about other Braille codes. They just held one in St. Louis a couple of weeks ago. California Transcribers and Educators of the Blind and Visually Impaired in California has members all over the country, actually all over the world, not just California, but they have conferences with just tons and tons of workshops on different kinds of technical topics, and almost always for graphics. And then, of course, I mentioned the guidelines and standards. Why are we doing this twice? Because I'm going backwards, that's why. This is the one about the webinar from the American Foundation for the Blind. Talks about using a decision tree to help decide what you're going to do about making the graphic, how to determine the intent of the print image, how to use a planning sheet to plan it, components of the graphic and the unique characteristics of that particular graphic, and standards for readability. So that's what that particular one covers. I think they're on sale right now for $25 each. Otherwise, I think it's normally $50. So people always say, okay, so where am I going to get some images that I don't have to spend forever trying to change or fix up? Because when you import a regular print image, there are all kinds of print conventions that we use to help understand what an image looks like if you're a sighted learner. And if you're a tactile learner, most of those print conventions just get in the way. Things like shadows and depth perception and overlapping stuff. So where can you get images that are readable, that you don't have to spend forever, nor do you have to have a degree in art design in order to get into a tactile graphic? The first one is that American Printing House for the Blind has a tactile graphic image library they're building as they go along. It has some images in it. You go to the website and sign up. They send you a password in a day or so, and then you can just go in and look at all of the different images and see which ones you want to. You download them. When you do download them, they're PDFs, and so you'll need a PDF transfer program. One of the programs that's free and is really easy to learn to use is called Inkscape, I-N-K-S-C-A-P-E. And that will allow you to do a lot of changing of size, changing of fills, that kind of thing, before you actually look at importing it into a graphics embosser. But the images from there are a good start. It's not a full library yet, but it's getting there. It's working on getting there. The Diagram Project, which is the sister of Bookshare, Benetech has the grant for that, is currently developing a library of image descriptions for describing images, of tactile graphics files, of 3D printer files, an entire sort of a repository. So like, where are the images that fall under this particular, you could go to science and you need to look at anatomy images, and so there'll be links that tell you where you can get those particular images. That's being built and is currently being tested right now. So watch for that piece of information to come out. The Royal National Institute for the Blind in the UK has posted something called the tactilelibrary.com, which also they have done some work with Zychem, which are the people that make the soil form machine, and they both have those on their websites. But tactilelibrary.com is also a library, sort of like APH's, that has a lot of different images. They're free to download and use, and you pull them into a program that you can make changes, change labels, do whatever you need to do. And View Plus, the Tiger Embosser people, have a bunch of images on their website under downloads that are basically, some of them are for Iveo and some of them are for the Tiger Embossers, different sizes. But we know that PRN files will import into Firebird, so you can also use those. So that'll give you some ideas of where it is you want to go, where it is you want to start from there. I'm looking to see what questions there are now. Boy, I have a teeny tiny little.
There's a few questions. There's a few. I also got a few questions. People asking if this PowerPoint will be available. Just to let you know that we'll send to each of you a follow-up email, probably on Monday, with a link to the recording of that webinar and also a PDF copy, if you agree, Lucia,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
all of the viewers. Um, Also, some questions that we got. People were wondering where we could get the Firebird software. It's available for free on the HumanWare website. So we'll also send a link to the Firebird download page on HumanWare's website. And also, a quick reminder that this software is working, is supported with all the enabling embossers. So another questions is yes, is there a Mac version of the Firebird software? Do you know about this, Lucia?
And say that again.
Is there a Mac version of the software?
Version 29 is the most recent version of. There are previous versions, but if you have an embosser that uses it, you can do the upgrade. And actually, from the enabling website, you can just download it for free. So if you want to download it and play with it and see whether it's something that you might want to use, if you had the right embosser, to use it, you can certainly do that. Now, the Firebird is proprietary to the enabling embossers, some of the enabling embossers, just like the Tiger Designer is proprietary to that particular one. The only thing that's generic for all, for including index and enabling and View Plus embossers, is a program called Tactile Vision from the Netherlands. It's a pretty nice graphics program. It costs sort of a bundle, but it will work on all three of those embossers. So if you have a different Braille embosser that is a graphics embosser, and not all of them are, I saw that there's a question about does it work with Romeo Pro 50? No, it works with the new 60 and the new 120 Juliet, but not the old ones. They didn't have the capability of making the dots close enough to be a high resolution graphics embosser. But and the 50 and the Juliet will use something like, you can use QuickTack, which is free from Duxbury, on those two embossers, but you can't use anything that's a higher resolution. Now, come to think about it, that'd be worth trying to see whether or not you can do something with it, whether or not the software is different enough. How the embosser is built is one of the big questions that's there. And as Louis-Philippe said, you can't buy Firebird anywhere because it comes with the embossers that use it for free. So that was a couple of times. We talked about resizing.
Maybe it would be a good idea also to explain what is the difference between Firebird and softwares like Adobe, Photoshop, and these kind of photographic software.
Okay, the primary difference is what the output's going to look like. So if you use a graphic design program like the Adobe products, like CorelDRAW, even something as simple as WordDraw, which is also a design program that's easy to learn to use, what you're going to do is you're going to print those out. And so a printer has a whole different way of receiving the information and doing something with it than an embosser does. An embosser runs on a whole bunch of little pins and how close the pins are together and that kind of stuff. So the reason that you can't just take an Adobe PDF, for instance, like an Illustrator PDF, and import it straight in, is that the output, the data that tells the embosser or the printer what to do is not correctly organized for a Braille embosser. That's why you have to convert it within a program. Now, the Tiger designers, the Tiger embossers are a little different in that if you can send it to a print printer, you can send it directly to a Tiger. The question is, can you read it once it comes out of there? That's not so true with the enabling products or the index products. they expect you to do something to clean it up a little bit before that happens. I hope that answered that question. Ask again if I didn't do that.
I think so. Can the image be imported into Duxbury?
Into Duxbury? Yeah, a low resolution one can. And there is there actually if you know how to go in and look at the codes, Alt F3 will take you to the codes that are in the Duxbury file. You can, in fact, insert a graphic in there. If it's really high resolution, because your embosser, which is getting ready to emboss Braille, can't just switch over all of a sudden to really, really high resolution. It's going to stay with those pens exactly the right distance apart, so the Braille dots, so the words, that the characters in Braille are where they need to be. It doesn't switch over to graphics automatically. So you can do a lower resolution one, like you would get if you were using QuickTech. You could also do it from, you could also embed, I think, you could also embed a graphics from Firebird into your, and this is a good question. I've done a lot of work with Duxbury and graphics in them, but I haven't done this. I'm not sure. I'll have to work on that answer. I see a question that says, is it possible for a blind person to use Firebird? The Firebird is accessible, so as you go over the menu, it'll read you what the menu says. However, what you don't know is what it is you're seeing on the screen. And until we have a full-page graphics and display, that, which is probably going to be coming fairly soon, that will show you what you're seeing on the screen, it's hard to know what to do about it. But the menus are accessible. It's just not necessarily something that's going to be comfortable to use to create. What we hope is that for especially teachers who are visually impaired who are blind, will be able to learn how to what kinds of capabilities the software has, and be able to work with the transcriber or a pair or someone in their building who can actually create those graphics and manipulate the screen and the mouse. It is pretty mouse prone. We hope that blind teachers will be able to go, or blind parents, whoever, will be able to go back and work with somebody else in their building and be able to use the program. But there is, at this point, only one graphics program that is totally accessible for a blind person, and it's if you're a computer programmer, it's a great program to have. Otherwise, I wouldn't even recommend you thinking about it. It's pretty complicated. It's fascinating, but it's pretty complicated. That's it. Now the tactile view is a little more accessible, except you still don't know what exactly is on the screen. The person who invented tactile view, his name is Jaap Breeder. He's from the Netherlands, and he is blind, and he's also the person who developed the first refreshable Braille screen, the Alva, if anybody's old enough to remember that. So he uses tactile view a lot. I think he said that he had to have someone that with vision who could tell him what was happening when he applied the different kinds of filters and that kind of stuff. But so far we aren't quite there, but if we can get a graphics display, we'll be able to do lots more stuff with that. That'll be pretty neat. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, there are a lot. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to answer all of them, but let's pick another one, and maybe we can ask a few ones after if we still have some time. Somebody asked that they say we don't have an embosser, but could Firebird software help to create a better graphic that could be created on swell paper?
Well, you can use any kind of drawing software to create that graphic, to either do it on swell paper or to convert the file and bring it into a graphics embosser. You can, like any of the Adobe's, CorelDRAW, those kinds of softwares, to create something. And then you can also, the other thing is you can also print it out and then use it to do a collage if you're going to do collage graphics. So you can use software to do that. I don't think that I'm not sure that that Firebird would be particularly helpful in doing that kind of creation. I think there are other things that would be quicker and easier to do. Inkscape, for instance, would be quicker to be able to import an image, change it, fill it, put whatever it is you need to do, and then print it out for swell paper graphics.
Another question that's I shouldn't answer this question as HumanWare represents enabling, but to be fully transparent, let's ask the question anyway. Does the Firebird software works also with index embossers?
Oh, that's right. The new versions, it does. You're right, it does. Thank you. I'd forgotten about that. Interesting, Index Embosser has been able to do high resolution graphics for many, many years, but nobody had ever developed a program to do that. So when Tactile View came around, it was sort of like, oh, great, here's something that we can use with the index. Now, this new version does in fact work with the indexes. It didn't before. It didn't work with the indexes before, but it does now. So if you have an index embosser, you could do that. Now, even if you did not have tell me if I'm right about this. Even if you did not have an enabling embosser, but you had an index, could you still download Firebird for free? I would assume so. You can see it on the website. You can click the download button. Louis Philippe, do you know?
Yes, everybody can download the software for free, but the software is really designed to be working with the enabling embosser. So it's difficult, well, at least for me, it's difficult to comment if it would work with the index embosser because the license is really made to work with the enabling embosser. But you could try. You could try.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Someone else also asked whether or not Firebird's available for Mac yet. Not yet. It's not available for the Mac. I don't know whether there are plans for it to be. Do you know, Louis Philippe?
No, I couldn't tell, but we will ask offline and we could verify that.
Yeah, we could find that out. Okay. Okay. I'm looking at the other questions. Oh, and can you use it with an average D? Yes, an index embosser. Have a Juliet 60. Can it be used with that embosser? No. The Romeo and Juliets before this current generation, the ones that are bigger and clunkier, were not set up to do the adjustment of the pin distance from each other to be able to do the resolution that you would need for graphics. You could just make lines of braille dots in various places. So they were not set up to be used with those. You can use QuickTac from Duxbury. That's a free download, and you can do that on the old embossers. Okay, was there another question about a pie chart, or did I answer that one? Maybe.
I think I think you did answer the pie chart question. Let me see if. I think you answered a lot of the questions. There's a lot of them, so sorry if we can't
right.
all of them.
Oh, and the question was, could I erase the line on the side of the rabbit? Yep, I sure could. Let me see if I can open that up again and make that work. I might have just totally closed it. Probably did. Oh, I don't want that to be, that will not work. Oh, did, okay. Okay, so we're talking about you're talking about the line to the right of the rabbit, right?
Yes, I think we.
Okay, I can erase it over here on the edit side. I have to click edit so that I'm now using that screen. And if I wanted to do the whole line, I would click the polygon erase so that I could click and then drag. Click, drag it over here, click, drag it over here, click, drag it over here. And then you right click and it's gone. So that's how I would erase that line. And you bet you definitely want to do that before you emboss. The other thing is when you import a lot of images, there ends up being in print, there's a square around it, a box around it, and you don't usually even notice it. We get used to noticing that and not even noticing that in print. But it will show up as a box around it in Braille, which probably you don't want to do. So you do the same thing I just did with the polygon erase. To erase any boxes around something, because for the most part you don't need to have an image in a box. It's not like it's going to fall off the side of the page or anything. I'll show you how the other eraser works. The little one that doesn't have the polygon picture on it. If I just go in here and click and drag and let up, it'll erase that chunk. But now I decide I'm going to undo that, and I click Control-Z, Control-Z, and it comes right back. So the nice thing is that you can make a mistake and say, oops, that's not what I meant to do, and do some changing from there. Also, if I wanted to make a new image, I'll just do this while I'm here. If I wanted to make a new image, say I have some math drawings to do, I'm still in the same, I have the settings the same as they were before, and so I need to do some shapes that are going to be there. Maybe I need to do a Venn diagram. So let me see. I want to have a wider line. No, let's see. I want a, if I choose styles, I get a whole other set of kinds of lines that I can use, which I have no idea where they just went. Huh. Well, that's interesting. That's why I don't ever do anything live. Look for a live thing. I don't know where it is. I can choose the styles from the lines that here we go. Say that I want to do this kind of a line for the next set. For Venn diagrams, by the way, each circle needs to have a different line texture. I'm looking at that thing, oh, that's probably just not going to be what I wanted for it to be. So in order to get rid of that, or to move it, I go to Edit and say I want to cut this, and it doesn't do anything to start with until you actually, oh no, I hate it when it does this. Okay, this is why I don't do it live. Normally you cut it and then you paste it. You can actually move it over, or you can cut it and just delete it altogether. So if I were going to do another one, I would say I want to do a circle, and I want to do a medium wide line, and did another circle here. Oh, it's still left over from before. So you can see there are a lot of different line textures. If you're doing a map, for instance, you need different types of lines for different information. Lead lines are going to be a fine, soft line. A river or a state boundary or whatever, they need to be different ones. Same thing with math when you're doing graphs. So you would need to have a bunch of different lines. And so you might want to be drawing your own images for math problems, for instance. And most of the time, in order to get out of something, you right-click it once you're done. Otherwise, it seems to stay stuck to your little arrow all the way along. If I decided that I needed to put more dots in here, can I see what I'm doing? No, I'm not. But I could actually do a fill like this if I had enough patience, just to put all the little dots in. Sometimes you need to do that to fill in an area that didn't quite do what you want it to do. So I'll go back to normal size. And at normal size, you can barely see that there's a texture in there. Now you can see there would be a texture in there. So I think maybe that answered that question about erasing the line.
Yes, I think so. So we have 1 minute left. So let's take, unfortunately, one last question. Sorry, I'm reading all the questions there. Somebody asked if we can draw graphics on the Braille No Touch and then use the Firebird to emboss the picture on the enabling embosser. There's actually a way to do this directly, but maybe Lucia, you can comment on that.
I have not had the opportunity to try that yet, although I read in the specifications that you're able to do that. So I am dying to try that out. I need to get my hands on it on the touch. That would be neat to see. But wouldn't that just be great if we could do that to, do quick images for our kids? If you could use any kind of a tablet and a stylus to draw what you need to draw and then send it over. I think if you cannot do that now, you will be able to do that really pretty soon. And again, the developers of Firebird have been very, very responsive to the field about what we've said as TVIs, as transcribers. This is what we need to be able to provide materials to students in a timely way when they need them, not 3 weeks after that unit's done. And they've been really pretty responsive in trying to create that for us, which is really sort of nice. So I will check into that and see about that. I was just trying to think. I have a website called tactilegraphics.org, which is terribly overlooked because I'm too busy to keep it up to date, which is terrible. But what I'll try to do is post any new information that I find out about that under the news section on that, and I'll try and get better at keeping that more up to date, so it would be there. But on the opening page where it says news, it would tell you that there's some information about the touch and whether it can emboss or not. So I'll try and find that information out and put it on my website. Is there a place we can do that, or a blog or anything we can do that on the HumanWare website?
We will do a follow-up email of this webinar, so we can answer some of the questions, some of the unanswered questions that we also got, so we can answer in that email. But there's also a frequently asked question section on HumanWare's website.
Okay.
We could also send a link to that section as well in the follow-up email.
Okay, great. All right. Well, so that gives us a way that we can go about sending information. If I can help in any way, it's interesting. This week before the seminar, I got 3 requests about for information about how to do something with Firebird. So if there are anything I can help you with along the way, don't hesitate to give me a call or to send me an email at lucia@tactilegraphics.org, and well, we just got too much stuff open. You can't even see that slide. And ask the questions. I'll be glad to try and help with that. I don't know if I said earlier, but as a teacher of the visually impaired for many, many years, my most frustrating thing was making sure that my students had all the information that the other students had that was in the graphic, as not explained anywhere else. So I am still, even though I pretended like I was going to retire, I'm still very committed to seeing that students have what they need and that they learn how to read the graphics. What we've seen now in textbooks is that a huge percentage of information is only in the graphic. It's not in text and then also a graphic. It's only in the graphic. So if we don't teach kids to read them, they're not going to get all the content. So I'm still very committed to that. So please email me if you have questions I can try and help you out with. I'll try to keep my website a little more up to date to give you more information about that. There is some information already there, but not so specific about Firebird, but about sort of general kinds of things. So thank you all for participating. It was great to have you all be here and know that you're all interested in doing this, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Lucia. That was very interesting. And again, we're very sorry that we weren't able to answer all the questions. I'm also sorry about my French-Canadian accent. I hope you guys had not too much trouble understanding my English. So again, we'll be posting, we'll be sending you a link with all the information regarding the Firebird software. The slides that were shown by Lucia, and the link to the recording of that webinar. So,
and we will also answer any of the questions that came in that we did not get answered in that email. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. We'll try to answer all of the unanswered questions as best as we can.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lucia, and thank you so much, everybody. Have a good weekend. And we are looking forward to present you some webinars about the new features in the future again. So thank you very much.
Thank you.